You know that promise, right? Work hard, stay loyal, keep your head down, do the right thing long enough, and eventually life will hold together. Your parents believed that. A lot of people still do. Millions of Americans built their entire lives around that deal. Same alarm clock every morning, same commute, same company logo on the badge. Same belief that if they kept showing up, kept producing, kept sacrificing, the system would recognize it and give them something back. Stability, a mortgage, tuition for the kids, a retirement that didn't feel like a fantasy. But something changed in 2026, and what makes it different is how quiet it's been. No giant crash. No emergency tone on cable news. No one standing behind a podium calling it a crisis. Just a slow, cold subtraction happening across the country. Over 1.1 million middle-class jobs disappearing, not from the edges of the economy, but from the parts people thought were solid. The jobs that used to anchor entire families. And the part almost nobody wants to say out loud is this. This does not look like a recession. It looks like replacement. So what is actually happening here? Why does 2026 feel different from every other round of layoffs people have lived through before? And the question sitting underneath all of this, the one you probably felt before you even clicked on this video, is whether your job could be next. Because once you see the pattern, really see it, the language companies use starts sounding different. Restructuring, efficiency, optimization, digital transformation. Those words stop sounding neutral. They start sounding like warnings. And by the end of this, that's what I want to show you. Not 10 random layoffs. Not 10 different companies making 10 isolated decisions. One pattern, one logic, one system-wide shift moving through the economy in real time. And once you see that pattern clearly, it gets very hard to unsee. Start with Walmart, because Walmart tells you something simple and brutal about America. When people are okay, Walmart still does business, but when people are strained, Walmart becomes something closer to a national stress test. It's where people go when budgets tighten, when name brands become store brands, when every extra dollar starts mattering. So, if Walmart starts pulling back, that should get your attention. In 2026, they cut around 1,500 jobs, and what matters is not just the number. It's who got cut. Not the seasonal cashier. Not the obvious part-time role people expect to be unstable. The cuts hit the people behind the curtain, logistics managers, supply chain coordinators, operational staff, the people making $70,000 to $100,000 a year keeping product moving through a giant machine. And if you stop for a second, that decision tells a story. Food prices are still elevated. A basic grocery run that used to feel manageable now feels like a negotiation at the shelf. People still need to eat, but they're buying less, switching brands, stretching trips, reducing quantity, delaying purchases. The volume through the system changes. Inventory sits longer. Warehouses run cooler. At that point, the company stops asking what it used to ask, which was how do we support more demand, and starts asking the colder question, how many people do we really need to keep this running now? And that's where the answer increasingly becomes fewer. Because the machine now has alternatives. AI can forecast inventory. Automated systems can route product. Scanners can replace oversight. Robots can run through the night without breaks, without overtime, without negotiation, without calling in sick. If you're looking at labor through a spreadsheet, a machine looks clean in a way a person never does. Which means when Walmart cuts jobs like this, it's not just trimming cost. It's revealing two things at once. Consumers are weaker than they look, and the company has found a way to function with fewer humans in the loop. That alone is a huge warning sign. Because if a business built around cheap essentials is tightening this way, what do you think happens in sectors selling software, subscriptions, growth stories, premium products, or future technology? If this pressure reaches Walmart, it's already everywhere else. That takes you to Microsoft, which used to represent one of the safest promises in modern work. If you made it there, you'd think you had crossed some invisible line into security. High-skill work, strong pay, prestige, a front-row seat to the future. And then they cut 6,000 jobs. The obvious question is why, because Microsoft is not broke. They are massively profitable. They generate tens of billions. They are one of the clearest examples in the world of a company that does not cut because it has to survive. It cuts because it has found a more efficient structure. And that structure increasingly runs through AI. These weren't symbolic cuts. They reached into engineering, cloud, security, technical operations, exactly the kind of jobs people spent decades being told were protected by intelligence, by education, by specialized knowledge. People earning $120,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. The people who built and maintained the systems the rest of the world depends on. And now the internal tools those companies funded can write code, test functions, generate documentation, automate routine work, reduce headcount needs, and absorb pieces of what entire teams used to do. That's the part that lands differently than older layoffs. Nobody has to hate you. Nobody even has to think you're bad at your job. You can be excellent. The problem is that excellence is no longer the only comparison. The comparison is now between your cost and the output of a system that works continuously and scales instantly. At that point, your loyalty stops mattering. Your history stops mattering. The fact that you helped build the very systems now reducing headcount does not protect you from them. And that reveals something bigger than a Microsoft story. It tells you the old idea of safe white-collar work is cracking fast. The people who thought they were designing the future are finding out that the future they designed has no sentimental attachment to them. Then there's Amazon, which may be the clearest live experiment in how few people a giant company can ultimately operate with. Publicly, they announced around 14,000 cuts. Privately, reports and internal chatter pointed much higher. What matters again is not just the volume, but where the cuts land. Technical staff, cloud teams, ad operations, internal AI roles, high-income knowledge work. The kind of jobs people assumed would keep expanding because Amazon was still growing. But Amazon is not simply trying to grow now. Amazon is testing a model of operations where people become optional in more and more parts of the chain. Warehouses are more automated. Systems are smarter. Internal software reduces layers of work. And all of that is happening while the customer side of the business is changing too. Consumers are buying more carefully, abandoning carts, delaying purchases, cutting non-essentials. The company sees both sides at once: softer demand and better automation. So the same question appears again. How much labor is actually necessary? That's the pattern that should unsettle you. They are not just responding to weakness. They are using weakness to accelerate a shift they wanted anyway. Slower sales make it easier to justify fewer people. Better tools make it easier to execute. And once a company discovers it can preserve margin, improve output per worker, and train the market to accept smaller teams, why would it ever fully go back? That's why these layoffs feel different. They don't feel cyclical. They feel like testing ground. Amazon is not asking how to protect jobs through turbulence. It's asking what a large-scale company looks like when human labor is no longer the default input for growth. And if they prove that model works, everyone else pays attention. Salesforce is another revealing one because it breaks a different kind of illusion. They didn't just sell software. They sold culture. They built an identity around warmth, values, belonging, the whole idea that work could feel human inside a large company. People didn't just join for salary. They joined because the environment seemed different. It seemed safer in an emotional sense. Then 4,000 jobs disappeared. Customer support, operations, technical teams, consulting staff, sales functions, the kinds of people who once fit neatly into the company's family language. And what replaced them? Not one dramatic event. Not some total collapse. Just a combination of tighter customer budgets and better automation. If your customers are small and mid-sized businesses under pressure, software subscriptions suddenly become negotiable. Spending slows. Growth slows. Then AI tools start handling pieces of support, outreach, analysis, workflow, forecasting, and communications that used to require more staff.